And look, I'm not saying I disagree with you because I'm not even sure that I do, but I'm just saying if you're going to look at the stats, it doesn't really tell a full story because I can't sit here and say Jaylen Brown's as good offensively as Kyrie Irving. It's kind of an insane thing to say, but maybe it isn't. Right. I'm just asking. Cello, the John F. Kennedy thing, we know it wasn't a lone gunman. It was either the CIA, the USSR, or the mob, right?
Right.
I'm just not so sure Kyrie's not going to leave mid-playoff series to go investigate for himself. Like, would it surprise you if before Game 3, the report comes out, it's like, we don't know where Kyrie Irving is. The last time we saw him, we was at Daily Plaza. And it's like, wait, what?
Look, the JFK thing, people around the league still text me, and they're like, what the fuck is going on?
So, you can feel it. The Dallas crowd, late in a game, they start to miss shots. You can almost sort of feel them thinking, is this another JFK situation? Is something terrible happening here? I think it's why they have a better record on the road this postseason than at home. It's just something that I noted.
It could be.
Hey, Russello, if Tatum wins a ring this year, does he become your top 37 player all time for you? And if not, I'd love to know who's in your top 37.
Top 37. I did not know we were doing this.
Oh, well.
Okay. At 37, I have.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the NBA Finals, the Dallas Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics. And folks, I think this has the potential to be an all-timer. God thinks so too. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but there was just a huge lightning thunderstrike outside. Lightning thunderstrike? Thunderbolt. Here we go. Let's start this video immediately by saying this. Won't be talking about the regular season matchups between these two teams. It's irrelevant to me. We're in the finals, baby. We have 3 rounds of postseason action to go off of. I'm going to go off of that. And this right here, a little game that I just invented called Two Things Can Be True. Let's start with this. Thing number 1. Did the Boston Celtics have quite possibly the easiest path to the NBA Finals, maybe ever? Sure. Yeah. Not only did the teams they went up against, not only were they a little bit lackluster in what was a weak Eastern Conference this year, but they were all incredibly injured, either missing their best player for half the series or more, or their second, third best player. I mean, it was crazy, their injury luck. But also that's, they were the number 1 seed. And the Miami Heat were the 8th seed, mainly because they were injured all season long. Guess what? They were injured in the playoffs. So it's not that big of a surprise. But yes, it was a pretty easy road to the finals. But thing number 2 that can be true is this is a really fucking good basketball team, man. Like, by pretty much all statistical indication, an all-time great basketball team. And while maybe they haven't been as dominant as we would have liked to have seen during this postseason run, they still have a 10.3 net rating in the playoffs. If they were to go on and win this series and keep that net rating around the same, it would be the 4th best since 2004, trailing only the 2 monstrous KD Golden State Warriors teams and the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers. Dude, the 2017 Golden State Warriors had a plus 16 net rating in the playoffs. Some of you have some nostalgia for that era, for those teams. That shit fucking sucked, okay? That was not fun at all. That genuinely was terrible. So I start with that, and I say that to say this. If the Dallas Mavericks go on to win this series, it will not be because the Boston Celtics are a fraudulent basketball team. I don't think they are a fraudulent basketball team. Sure, their path to the finals was very easy, but I would have picked them to come out of the Eastern Conference regardless of who they played, regardless of how healthy they were, because they were by far the class of the Eastern Conference. That's just true. So if the Mavericks go on to beat them, it won't be because the Celtics are frauds. It'll be because the Mavericks are also a really fucking good basketball team who's playing their best basketball of the season. It's by far the best Dallas Mavericks team of the Luka Doncic era, and it's not remotely close. And Luka Doncic is coming off of what I think was the best performance of his entire career in that Western Conference Final Series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where he just absolutely eviscerated what many people thought was a historic all-time great defense. Let's just start right there. Let's start with Luka Doncic because, of course, any series that he's in, he's going to be the talk of the series. How do you defend Luka Doncic? What are you comfortable sacrificing in an effort to limit how much Luka Doncic kills you? I'll go back on my word a tiny bit, and I'll reference the regular season matchup between these two teams. They played twice. The most recent time was in March. And for the most part, the Celtics were completely and totally cool with Luka going one-on-one. They switched everything. They let Luka get whatever mismatch he wanted, and Luka had a really great scoring game in that one. Of course, the idea behind the strategy is we feel comfortable enough in the defenders that we have to make life as difficult as possible on Luka, while also not helping, double teaming, and setting up advantageous scenarios for the Mavericks offense, whether that's 4-on-3 short roll opportunities where the Mavericks excel in, or wide open shots for the Mavericks shooters, because Luka is such an incredible passer that he can find angles and passes and pass over double teams and pass through double teams, whatever the case may be, to hit the open shooter. And it's a solid strategy until it doesn't work anymore. And over the course of a 7-game series, being heavily reliant on playing one-on-one defense against a guy like Luka Doncic, you set yourself up for big time disaster. And that's why I think it's so stupid to say this, but, bear with me here. That's why I think the X factor for the Mavericks is Luka Doncic, especially early on in the series. What I mean by that is Luka's going to have to make the Celtics pay for one-on-one coverage immediately, enough so that they blink and change up how they're defending him. We saw that in the series against the Timberwolves, where by the end of the series, my God, I felt like the Timberwolves threw 12 different things at Luka, and it just did not matter by the end of it because he was so comfortable in what he was seeing. But it's no secret what the Dallas Mavericks want to do. They want to get lob opportunities for their bigs, and they want to generate corner threes. The Mavs have attempted 11.5 corner threes per game this postseason. That is the most in the NBA. They're hitting nearly 40% of their corner threes. The Celtics, on the other hand, defensively, only allow 6.5 corner threes per game, which is far and away the lowest in the postseason. Part of this is because the Celtics, again, they're okay with playing one-on-one defense because they have enough faith in their defenders, and as they should, because pretty much 1 through 5 on their team are very capable one-on-one defenders, and some of them are all world level one-on-one defenders. But also the Celtics are an incredible team when it comes to rotating defensively. Even if they do pinch in a little bit off the corners to help, they can fly around the floor. They close out incredibly quickly. So even if you do generate what you think is an open corner three, all of a sudden you have Derek White flying at you, and he's blocking shots, and he's wreaking havoc defensively. But that's not to say the Celtics defense is impenetrable, because they're not. While they aren't allowing a ton of attempts at the rim over the course of this postseason, their opponents are shooting 70% when they get to the rim. A lot of that has to do with Kristaps Porzingis missing the vast majority of this playoff run. We'll talk about him here in a minute. But another part of that is due to the fact that Al Horford has looked really, really old at times. And while Derek White is an incredible shot blocker for his size, Tatum is a big player, and defensively he's been really, really good this postseason. If KP's not out there, they don't have a ton of rim protection. And another reason for those numbers is something that would concern me pretty severely if I were a Celtics fan. Their pick and roll defense has been lackluster at best during this postseason run. Like, I was going back and watching Celtics games in preparation for this. Like, I was watching the series against the Cavs. Like, Max Strus was making things happen as a pick and roll ball handler, and I think Max Strus is an underrated playmaker. But that concerns me a little tiny bit if I'm a Celtics fan, knowing that the man walking through that door is quite possibly the greatest pick and roll ball handler in the history of the sport. I'm obviously talking about Josh Green. No, I'm just kidding. I'm talking about Dante Exum. No. So the Celtics, who drop quite a bit when it comes to pick and roll coverages, we just saw the Dallas Mavericks completely and totally eviscerate the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were playing in drop. At least Rudy Gobert was for the vast majority of that series. And I do think the Mavericks pick and roll game could put the Celtics defense in a bit of a compromised position. And this is what having a player like Luka Doncic does for you. He's a game breaker. He just is. I imagine the Celtics will defend similarly to how the Oklahoma City Thunder did, where the on-ball defender will fight like hell to get over the screen, the center will drop a little bit, and the corners will pinch in to help prevent lobs, which means that the Mavericks roll guys are going to have to be ready to knock down corner threes. So while the Celtics don't give up a high number of corner threes, they haven't faced something quite like this yet, is the point I'm trying to get across. And the Celtics being comfortable with switching everything is going to make some of these matchups very, very interesting. I want to point to a possession in one of the Pacers games where the Pacers were trying like hell to get Horford switched onto the ball handler, and the Celtics pre-switched it like 4 times before inevitably Horford got involved in the action and got scored on. And we know this is a Mavericks team led by a player in Luka Doncic who will relentlessly hunt a mismatch if he feels like there is one. And this leads me into what I think the X factor is for the Boston Celtics, and that is their bigs. They're going to swing the series for the Celtics. Like, it just will. Of course, Kristaps Porzingis hasn't played in nearly a month and a half. We don't really know what to expect out of him. Is he going to be ready to play in this series? I would have to assume so. As of the time I'm recording this, I don't really know. I saw a tweet earlier today that said that he was going to be on a minute restriction. I have to be honest with you. I'm not putting too much trust in anything I'm reading at this point in time. But if KP is back, I mean, we don't really know what we're going to get. I saw a stat today that made my jaw drop. Derek Lively has more postseason games in his career than Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, it makes some sense when you think about it, but that's a little fucking crazy. KP only played in 3.5 playoff games this postseason, and it was the KP experience where one game was terrible, one game was good, one game was terrible, one game was good. And if he's back and he's playing a good chunk of minutes and he's knocking down 30-foot threes at a decent enough clip, that poses quite a bit of problems for the Dallas Mavericks, which is why I say the bigs are the swing factor for the Celtics. Because the Mavericks haven't played an offense like this. And of course not. The Celtics offense was the best in the league this season. They were historically great offense. They pose a spacing problem that this Mavericks team, even in their heightened form, even this Mavericks team that's been the number one defense in the league from, March whatever onwards, February whatever onwards, that they still have trouble with teams that can space the floor. And the Celtics do it better than anybody. I mean, 43% of their shots this postseason have been threes. And just for a little frame of reference, if we look at regular season stats, the Clippers were 17th in three-point frequency this season. That's the most of any team the Mavericks have played during this run. So they haven't gone up against a team that really spaces the floor like this. Now, the Thunder try to do it. The Thunder are like a lighter version of this, but the Thunder want to space the floor. That way, your defense is spaced out so they can drive to the rim, and there can be driving lanes for their cutters and for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to do shit. The Celtics are trying to space the floor to bomb threes. Like, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get your defense in rotation. You're collapsing in because Tatum got past his guy, or Jaylen Brown got past his guy, or Derek White got past his guy, and now the ball's flying around, and oh shit, KP just hit a 33-foot three. Or they're running pick and pops, and you're trying to blitz Jaylen Brown or Derek White or whoever the ball handler may be, Jayson Tatum, and KP is shooting threes. And this is a Mavs defense that's very strategic in who they let shoot. Their game plan this postseason has been absolutely on point. They help off of non-shooters. They know who they need to close out hard on. They know who they don't need to really worry about a contest on. They know who they need to stay attached to. The problem is that the Celtics offense, you really need to stay attached to all of them if their bigs are hitting shots. If Al Horford's missing threes and you feel comfortable helping off of them, well, that does change things quite a bit. Al Horford, 34% from three this postseason. The numbers don't really tell the full story, though, because when he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's not. And when he's hot, it's pretty much fucking impossible to beat the Celtics. I just got to be real with you. 7 of 12 against Indiana in game 3. Good night. You're not winning that game. 3 for 12 from 3 in game 1. It's a big reason why that game was as close as it was, because the Pacers were cool with him doing whatever the fuck he wanted on the perimeter, and he was just clanking threes. 6 of 13 from 3 in game 5 against the Cavaliers. Good night. You're not winning that game. The 2 games prior to that combined, 0 for 10. So if KP is a little compromised, or he looks rusty, or he is on a minute restriction, the Al Horford minutes are going to be big. He's going to have to knock down threes, and he's going to have to be better defensively. I mean, he's been bad defensively this postseason. Teams have just relentlessly hunted Al Horford, whether that was the Heat, whether that was the Cavs, whether that was the Pacers. And again, this is a Mavericks team that with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are going to hunt players that they deem mismatches. To the point where players might get played off the court. The problem is like Al Horford can't get played off the court. What's the next option if KP's on a minute restriction or limited? Luke Cornett? Yeah, fucking right, buddy. Xavier Tillman? No. I'm also interested to see the pace at which the Dallas Mavericks play at. Again, I know I said I wasn't going to reference the regular season, but here I am doing it again. In their last meeting, the game was close until the Celtics went on just a monstrous run at the end of the third quarter. And part of that was due to the fact that the Mavericks tried to get in a three-point shooting contest with the Celtics, and they're just not built to do that. So I'm interested to see if the Mavericks play at a much slower pace here, because once you get the shot clock low on the Celtics, you feel pretty good about your chances as a defense. If you stay connected defensively and you force a tough isolation possession for Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown, 2 guys who are very capable of scoring in that environment, but you're okay with it. You're okay with Jayson Tatum taking tough 2s. You're okay with Jaylen Brown taking tough long 2s. But again, that requires you to be on point defensively, top to bottom, 1 through 5, 1 through 8, everybody who's playing on the court, because they're going to hunt mismatches. The Celtics and Mavericks are very similar in the sense that offensively they do different things, but they ultimately what they're trying to do is hunt mismatches. That means Luka and Kyrie, who I imagine are going to be involved in a lot of action in this series defensively, they're going to have to be on point, on ball, off ball. The Celtics will set ball screens with whoever, whatever matchup they deem advantageous. They will bring that guy up and set a screen. It does not matter who it is. It could be Drew Holiday. It could be Derek White. Jayson Tatum. It doesn't matter. They'll set screens with whoever. So you got to be on point and ready to go. But another interesting little wrinkle here is, watching that Pacers series, and Tatum spent a lot of time trying to post up Andrew Nembhard, who's a shorty. It made me look at the rosters that the Celtics are playing, and I'm like, holy shit, they're playing literal miniatures. Like, they're playing little babies. Like, not only will this Mavericks team be far and away the best team the Celtics have played in over 2 months, but it'll also be the biggest, comfortably. And Tatum and Brown love finding mismatches that they can just kind of bully. Drew Holiday does this too, that they can just kind of bully and back down and get to the paint. I don't know how many of those matchups they're going to find in this series where they're just able to play bully ball. So that's something to keep in mind here. And going back to my point about the Mavericks sort of dictating the pace, I know I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm scrambled. This is my second time trying to record this video. There's a fucking storm going on outside. I want to make sure I touch every single point. The Mavs dramatically upped their pace in the regular season. They got in transition 15% of the time. That was around top 10 in the league. That's down to 13% in the postseason. Now, most teams play a little bit slower in the playoffs, but in a series against the Thunder, where you know what the Thunder like to do, they like to force turnovers, they like to get out and run, that number dropped to 11%, which is slow. So the Mavericks understand when it's time to dictate pace and when it's time to slow the game down. They'll be opportunistic with their hit-ahead passes, mainly from Luka Doncic, and Kyrie will also be opportunistic in transition, pull up threes, attacking the rim, whatever the case may be. But if they feel they have an advantage when the game slows down, which they will have in this series, they will slow the game down. And that's what I fully expect from this Mavericks team. Man, this series has a lot of things. It has a lot of things and a lot of pieces, to reference the great Bill Simmons. The Kyrie Irving piece, like they're already printing "fuck Kyrie" shirts. They're selling them outside of was it TD? Was it the Garden or was it Fenway? I don't remember. I saw the tweet, which I don't know if I'd want to poke the bear. I also saw "fuck Luka" shirts. I don't know if I'd want to poke the bear. I get that's the Celtics fan base. I get that that's what they do against everybody, but I don't know. This Mavericks team really feeds off of that stuff, especially Luka Doncic. I don't think it's a secret that the Warriors just kind of whooped their ass a few years ago, and they were very, very buddy-buddy. It was hilarious to watch. I have to say, as a Mavericks fan, I'm not like excited about watching Derek White, but as a basketball fan, I am excited about watching Derek White just completely and totally wreak havoc defensively on the game. That's what he does, and it is legitimately a joy to watch a guy just do a billion different things on the basketball court the way that Derek White can, and he's been incredible so far this postseason. This will be a really fun series. As far as my pick goes, we haven't had a Game 7 in 8 years. It's been since 2016. That's the second longest stretch in NBA history without a Game 7. We went 12 years from 94 to 2005. And while I did love that Bucks-Suns series, it's also been since 2016 since we've had a real banger final series. And I think we're due for one. We only got 9 conference finals games. 5 for the Mavericks, 4 for the Celtics. So I do think this series is going 7. I think it has all-time great potential. I just do. And of course I'm going Mavs in 7. What the fuck? It goes to a Game 7. You think I'm picking against Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving? I don't care if it's on the road. And that's just ultimately where I come down to in the series. It's the stupidest analysis. It's why I saved it for last. I think the Mavericks have the best player in the series. I think the Mavericks quite possibly have 2 of the 3 best players in the series. And if you played basketball at any level, you know that that's difficult to overcome. And the Celtics have a great team, so they could definitely overcome it. That's why I have it going 7 games. And obviously the Celtics are the betting favorites for a reason. But at the end of the day, I feel just more comfortable in the offense that Luka can generate and this matchup for Luka versus a Tatum-led offense down the stretch of games. And that might not be fair to the Celtics because, yeah, they were in some uncomfortably close games to the Pacers, but they fucking annihilated them in the clutch. Like, that was an evisceration in the clutch. We can't, on one hand, shit on the Celtics' crunch time offense and at the same time get mad at them for winning these close games against the Pacers. They did it in such convincing fashion in crunch time that it's like, oh, maybe they figured some stuff out offensively down the stretch. But also at the same time, this Mavericks team is not the Indiana Pacers. Like, they're just not. The Pacers offense down the stretch of those games was embarrassing. Like, quite literally dribbling the ball off their feet. Embarrassing. Anyways, man, this is going to be a great series. Contrasting styles here. The weaknesses the Celtics have defensively kind of plays into the Mavericks' hands. The weaknesses the Mavericks have defensively kind of plays into the Celtics' hands. This is going to be a great series. I'm excited to know what you guys think. Let me know down below. And always remember this. Take me out tonight where there's music and there's people and they're young and alive.